We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Osborne, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hammond, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Greetings and welcome to the one and only superstar show that is truly international, with 42 countries and counting, where we have received your calls and comments and questions for this show. Now, we are glad that we have built this record number of people and are able to reach news to you that mainstream denies, and hopefully we don't get to the point where they start to deny that. But nonetheless, this is the place where we bring you the news, and this happens to be Dr. J Radio Live, and I, of course, am your humble host, Dr. J, broadcasting right here in Los Angeles, known as, of course, the City of Angels, globally. We also have my co-host, already making this international, who usually is live in London, but happens to be in my studio today, the one and only Johnny Webb, and, of course, the rest of the Dr. J Radio Live team. As always, we bring to you a very special and awesome show, bringing you top guests. But tonight, we double the fun with two incredible guests. Now, unfortunately, one is having a little bit of problems trying to connect with us from Holland. But nonetheless, I was going to introduce the first one anyway, to introduce the second one. And until we can get the second one, we are going to be talking to the first guest, who is the top in her field and knows so much information and has so many amazing photographs that would really make you draw conclusions that, or make you think, really think, where in most cases people are just acclimated to what they see on the mainstream news. This happens to be the one and only Nancy Talbott. Nancy, welcome back.
Well, hello, and thank you for the nice intro.
Oh, it's all true. I always speak the truth, and that's the important. And, of course, I want to tell everybody, because of what I say is the government coming in and interfering with information to you, she's trying to rebuild up her Facebook, or she had her page where she had all this information. So in the meantime, you need to go to bltresearch.com, such as BLT, bacon, lettuce, tomato, but bltresearch.com. Is that correct, Nancy?
That's right. The only other thing is that I did get my Facebook page back.
Good.
After about a month. Somebody better connected than I talked to somebody who was better connected than I, and we got it back.
That is good. Somebody up there that can pull those strings. There's probably, the people that are allowing, I hate to be political, but this is just what facts have shown, especially from other politicians, such as people that are protecting Hillary Clinton from the FBI. But nonetheless, that's what we call the untouchables. As you know, there's just tiers where some of us are ostracized and cast out for telling the truth or thinking differently, as opposed to what the mainstream wants us to think. So until we can get Robbert, and I'll let you, actually, why don't you go ahead and mention his name?
Well, what I wanted to do to start with, so that people get to hear something, this we're going to talk about with Robert Broeke in Holland, if the Skype thing will only cooperate. But two of the things that Robert and I spoke about that we might like to talk about tonight, and he in particular, there are two things. One is, are UFOs, whatever in the world UFOs are, and in fact what they may variously be, because now it seems that there isn't just one kind of UFO, there seem to be many. And the question has been, are any of these things directly related to the crop circle phenomenon? It's an ongoing debate, question, And in Robert's case, he is actually seen with his eyes, totally conscious. He does not do drugs. He does not drink. Totally conscious. He has seen UFOs make crop circles. And he has a friend who, with him, has also witnessed this on one occasion occur. Not all crop circles are directly related to UFOs. but some of them apparently really are. And the other question that Robbert can talk about at length is this idea that creatures or beings or life forms or consciousnesses from elsewhere, ET, extraterrestrial types or interdimensional types or angelic or whatever you might want to call them, or maybe where they all come from, I don't know. This idea that the encounters or involvements with them that Robbert has had for 25, 30 years now are not these, they're not related to the general idea of ETs as something to be afraid of, something threatening, something that will abduct you against your will, stuff like that. His encounters with a wide variety of other dimensional beings has been exactly the opposite, and in fact cooperative and interested or respectful of human needs and human boundaries, things like that. So I thought maybe I could talk about the first time that he saw a UFO visually making a crop circle. It was back in 2000. It was the year before I saw the crop circle getting made in Holland in 2001. So we're talking 2000, and he was on his bicycle, because back then that's all he had, out on the dikes, and in daylight, this is in the afternoon, he suddenly saw a UFO, a standard, typically described kind of UFO, meaning circular in shape, with, in his case, he described the lights, multicolored lights all around the perimeter, you know, the edge of the thing. It was hovering over a cornfield, very next to, just outside of Hooven, near Robbert's special field, and it was simply hovering when he first saw it. He got off his bike and was standing there watching it, and then got the urge to walk farther down into the field. The dikes there, you have to go down the sides, and then there are raised areas in between the fields where you can walk. And he did, getting closer and closer, and it was descending very slowly over this field that was in maize, you know, corn. And we're talking full-grown, this is 10 to 12 foot tall, mature corn. And as he got fairly close to the field itself, the UFO by this time had gotten low enough over the field so he couldn't see it very clearly. And all of a sudden, he was unconscious. The next thing he knew, he was waking up, lying on the edge, along just the edge of a brand new circle that had not been there prior to his walking down into the field, because he could see the whole field from up on the dike, you see. And he's waking up inside this brand new crop circle, and it's, you can still hear the nodes were popping. When crop circles occur in corn, you're talking about an inch and a half diameter stalk. And I don't know if you're a country boy,
yeah,
but if you've ever tried to snap one of those stalks at the nodes, you know perfectly well you can't do it. I mean, it's impossible.
Let alone a whole, you know, inch diameter's worth. I mean, just the point is the amount that get snapped and put in that direction of circular.
Well, this was a big crop formation. It was a big circle, at least 30, 40, 50 feet in diameter. Perfect circle, sitting right in the middle of this field. He wakes up, lying on the edge of it, and just is getting conscious and realizes, you know, that he's been picked up and plopped down into this crop circle. And it was starting to get dark. He got a little nervous as it was, you know, it was late and it was starting to get dark. And so he looked around a little bit, and, I mean, it was swirled perfectly. Just in these great, big, huge plants are swirled absolutely perfectly, no mess at all. But a lot of these popped nodes, they look like they've been cut with a machete, but they haven't been. They've been exploded. And he looked around, he saw some of them, but he wanted to get home because it was getting dark. And when his father and he came back the next morning early and took photographs, there were numerous of these exploded, and this is not just a hole blown out at the side of them. which is what we find when the crop circles occur in wheat or oats or barley, you know. This was in full-grown maize, and the nodes were blown apart all throughout this thing.
Mm-hmm. We have a caller. Actually, I have a question I was about to ask you, and now we have a caller here. Oh, this caller hung up. So let me ask this question right here. Since we're talking about the crop circles, this is Tony Jonesman from Greenwich, Connecticut. So near you. I wonder if you've had interaction with this person, but maybe not, because it's this type of question. It says, wants to know if you know what these crop circles are or mean.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what they want to know.
That's what Tony wants to know. Yes.
What they are flattened areas of plants of any variety you can think of. We've seen them in spinach, in carrots, in maize, in wheat, oats, barley, whatever.
Pretty much anything that has that sort of long stem and grows in that sort of field, right?
Well, it has to be crop.
Correct.
To be a crop circle.
Exactly.
Except that occasionally, in Robert's case, one year we had massive crop formations, 2 of them right in a row, in snow.
Really?
Now, in
that
snow, as you can imagine, you're going to see footprints if there are people involved, right?
Yes. If someone's going there to do it, such as Doug and Dave from the 70s, and I've been paying attention and researching every aspect of all the paranormal, particularly extraterrestrials, UFOs, alien abductions, and crop circles. I remember one of this great DVD set just on crop circles alone. It was fantastic. The point being is...
Well, in this case, what you have to know is that, these were gigantic.
Well, this is the first...
They covered entire fields, and there was not a footstep in sight, not a footprint. And we're talking full, several inches of snow. And these rings went all over the field. Now, people had suggested that, okay... Robert went out into the field with, let's say, antifreeze, and he spread it around in all these circular areas, and this is what caused, and he spread it where his footprints were walking, so it would cover them, and it melted all the snow, and that's how it happened. But we sampled all of the area in the flattened areas where actually the snow was missing mostly, but we took a whole bunch of that snow that was left, and then we sampled the rest of the field where the snow was untouched, and we were looking for some sort of chemical that, let's say you've got somebody hanging underneath a helicopter.
Yes.
And they're spreading this stuff all over the field. Or you've got some fancy drone. This was back in, I think it was 2010 when those circles occurred. But let's say there was a drone and it was doing this. Well, they didn't have these drones for the public back then. But the point is, there was absolutely no chemical, nothing unusual found in the chemical analysis of the snow, the areas that were flattened or where it was all scooped down. And furthermore, very curiously, there was a lot of snow missing, and it was nowhere in the field or anywhere near it. We looked for piles of snow that had been taken out to form these circles and rings, and there wasn't any.
The hearing crop circles and snow, as I was mentioning, literally reading everything I get my hands on, watching and researching for over 3 decades. This is the first time I've ever heard of something in the snow. Now, can you tell us where in the world this was? It must have, if Robert saw it, in Holland. That's what I was going to say. In Holland, I'm assuming, because you said last time, as well as I think he confirmed the next night, or the night you were on and he was on and you were with him, that he doesn't leave Holland very much. Isn't that correct?
He never does.
Yes. Okay. That's what I wanted to get to. So now, like you said,
let me finish with this guy's question. Okay?
Sure.
So we got these flattened areas of crop, or in this case, snow. That's rare. And they can be very simple circles. They can be rings. They can be all kinds of designs. It turns out that most of the really fancy designs are man-made, but not all. Not all. Not just in Holland, but in other countries. They're not all. If they're complex, they're not all man-made. Now, what do they mean? That's a pretty big question. There are people who think they are communicating mathematical information.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of my personal take on that. It is that it's a challenge to many people to think that something that they absolutely don't understand is happening. They want some sort of sense of control, some kind of control, and therefore think that if they can interpret the circle, that they've got a modicum of control, if you will.
Yes.
And basically, although I think there is something to the math, the geometry idea, I don't think it's particularly significant in the sense of transmitting direct information. The phenomenon is bigger than that, I think. More so, it seems that the idea behind them worldwide is simply because they don't hurt you, they're sitting there. It's a very gentle way to encourage people to start to think about this larger reality without frightening them, without doing anything scary. Because UFOs can be scary.
Yes.
Creatures could be scary.
Well,
things like that. Whereas a crop circle, it just sits there.
Correct. And I'm glad you mentioned that because everybody is taught that monsters do not exist, beings other than what science currently says there are, do not exist, especially intelligence. So when you see something like this, obviously to you, it's alien. It's a monster. So of course.
No, it's just something unknown.
Unknown.
And people do not have to. My experience with the circles and with Robbert for 20-some years out in the fields is that at least in the situation that is around him,
yes,
but also in circles elsewhere, because I've been in them in many countries, I have never had any instinct, any sense that I was in any danger, that I was under any threat at all.
Now, this time that Robbert was woke up in this field, believe he said it was a dream. Did he ever have a loss of time, which is what alien abduction specialists?
Well, he was unconscious.
Yeah, well, that absolutely
for a while
counts.
he was
Yes.
out of it, But he doesn't, and he has had other events where he's had. I wanted to tell you about this one that happened in 2013.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, in this case, this is again it's in Holland, near where he lives. He always knows in advance. He can feel when they're getting ready to happen. And he has a very good friend who I know and I know enough to know that he's truthful, who was with him on this particular evening. And Robbert got the feeling that he gets. And so off they headed to the fields because he knew something was getting ready to happen. Now, Robbert isn't real technical, but his friend Stan knows something about equipment, and he grabbed a video camera to go as the two of them went off to this field, hoping that if something did happen, we've tried many times to get it on video, and people keep saying to us, well, if Robbert knows when they're going to happen, how come we don't have video, blah, blah. Well, okay, this time Stan's got the video with him, and they head off to this field. As they got to the field, close to it, they were on a motorbike this time, Robbert could feel the presence very strongly, and they both saw visually with their eyes another sort of basically standard-looking UFO right over the tree line along the side of the field. They pulled into the field, and as they did so, this thing was this UFO thing, which is kind of, oval, cylindrical, kind of a typical-looking UFO as people think of them. It was sitting over one corner of the field. And as they got off the bike and walked into the field a little bit, they both suddenly felt a dome of silence. Something came down around the whole area, which immediately they realized that the highway noise, which you can hear, this is right next to a major highway, it disappeared. It was very, very quiet. And many people who have had UFO encounters talk about this, that when the UFO is present, all the other normal noises kind of disappear.
Yes.
So they noticed that first. Then the UFO moves over closer to them and over the middle of the field and begins to drop multiple metallic-looking balls, light balls, but they're metallic-looking this time, down to the crop's surface. And at the same time that's happening, they both become aware of creatures. This is two, twice as tall. Robert's 6 feet, and we're talking at least twice as tall as him, so we're talking 6 meters or more. One is standing on Robert's right, one is standing on Stan's left. Robert and Stan are standing in the middle. And these creatures have a shape, a head shape, and then the rest of the body is amorphous. They're white, they're really tall, and they have 3 eyes each.
Really?
That
is something I've never heard of. I mean, obviously, everybody...
And that's all the features. Nothing else in the face. And both Robert and Stan felt that they were there as protectors or guards. They had something to do with guarding the area, and Stan and Robert in particular, while this event then unfolded. And what happened was these light balls came down to the field. It was a grass field this time, and made this long pictogram as they watched. They saw it as the balls were hitting the ground, and the crop formation was actually opening up. Stan, remembering about the video, everybody wants a video. He raises the video camera, try like crazy to get this on camera, and a bolt of energy of some kind went right smack to his video camera, and boom, knocked it out. Now, the camera had been fully charged when they left the house, but suddenly it's dead as a doornail, and obviously he can't take any video because the camera won't work. This has happened a number of times. At any rate, they watch as the UFO drops these balls down, makes the crop circle itself. These 2 creatures just stand, one on either side of Robert, as all of this is going on. Then the balls return up to the UFO, which is quite low. The thing sounded to me like it was only 30, 40 feet above the field and maybe only 30, 40 feet in front of them. So they were very close. As the balls retreated into the UFO, suddenly the UFO and the 2 creatures, the 2 beings on either side of the men, all disappeared. The dome, the sense of the dome being around them was gone. The normal noise from the highway behind them returned, and they're standing there looking at this great long pictogram that had just been made in the field right in front of them.
I think we have a way to get Robert. Let me try something. But in the meantime, can you tell us about this video that I saw? It was about 10 minutes long, and it involved 3 cameras, one on a tripod, one on someone's shoulder, and one with Robert holding. It was a small one that he was holding. And these men pretty much put him in...
You're talking about the Dan Drayson's film when he went to document...
Yes, that one.
Yeah. All of this information, by the way, is written up in reports on the BLT website, so you can read in detail about them. That particular event was Dan Drayson, who is a filmmaker in Los Angeles, and he had been hearing from me for a long time about Robert and wanted very much to try and do a test. And so it was set up, and he went in, it was in February 2014, and he took one video camera, which was set up to be stationary and running, the entire time. The other one was a video camera that Dan held on his shoulder, and he brought with him his own digital camera. Now, people say, well, Robert's doing something to his digital camera. Well, that's silly, because he's used my camera 1,000 times, and he never touches it unless I give it to him, and many other people's cameras, but Dan brought his own. And so the setup was, in Robert's little apartment, one video camera aimed right at Robert the entire time, running all the time. The other video camera is on Dan's shoulder, and he stands behind Robert, aiming his camera at the digital camera, which Robert is holding. And they show that the digital camera memory is blank. Then they show that the chip that Dan puts into it is blank. So there's nothing on the memory, there's nothing on the chip. And then Robbert simply waits until he feels an energy present. And he did. It doesn't work every single time. He doesn't necessarily know that it will. But on this occasion, it did. And as Dan was filming with both video cameras simultaneously, he's documenting Robbert as Robbert simply goes click, click. He holds his hands very carefully so you can see all of his fingers, and all he does is aim the camera wherever it is that he feels the energy, and goes click, 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 however many times he feels like doing it. And right away, he takes them until he feels like he should stop. He stopped, and then they scrolled back. Meanwhile, again, remember, the video cameras are running, both of them simultaneously. And what they see as Robbert starts to scroll back is this, there was a very strange image that looked like a child's hand curled around. We don't know what that image was. But then this EVP pioneer, this is one of these electronic voice phenomena people, who's one of the first guys to ever do this. His name was Friedrich Jorgensen. Robbert had never heard of him. But boom, right there on the camera is Friedrich Jorgensen, clear as a bell. And, he's there a couple times. And all of this is very carefully documented by Dan with his video cameras. During one section of this taping, Dan was fiddling around with the digital camera. Robbert was just standing there. The video cameras were running, and suddenly Robbert felt an energy present in the room, and he looked up, which is what he often does when he feels this presence. And then, with Dan still fiddling around with the digital camera, but the video camera recording all of this, Robbert then looked back down and looked directly at the stationary video camera, and it went dark all by itself, and then recovered. And Robbert nudged Dan and said, "Dan, there's something wrong with your video camera. It just went dark." And Dan said that, he then checked it, and he could see that it had all by itself gone dark. And he said that he'd never seen anything like that happen before or since, but it seems to be related to the energy that Robbert felt present. And when Robbert himself looked at that stationary camera, some sort of energy affected the camera and made it go dark.
One thing I also thought to be super fantastic was the amount of the pictures of people that had been deceased that showed up in the pictures.
Yeah, it was a stunning situation. I knew this was happening because Robbert had told me. And one year when I arrived, I knew because he had told me, but I had never seen it happen. And I don't write any, these reports that are on the BLT site are all things that I have personally witnessed or absolutely know to be factual. And I hadn't written anything about this before because I hadn't seen it myself. But in this particular instance, it was really, the first time I saw it was in 2006. And Robbert had just learned that he could make metal bend by itself, the way Uri Geller did. And he'd also learned that he could make compass needles spin, stuff like that. And so we were in his office one night, and I was I was photographing him as he made compass needles go and as he made all of his mother's cutlery. He bent the hell out of it that night. And I was just documenting it with a camera because I wanted to write a report about it. And as we were doing that, there came a very, very gentle tap, tap, tap on the door. And it was so gentle, I would not have known to pay any attention. But he looked up from his side of the desk. Now, you got to remember, in this little office, there's no instruments of any sort except my little point-and-shoot digital camera. That's all that's in there. No computers, no other cameras, nothing. And he looks up and he says to me, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yes." And then I knew, something was getting ready to happen. I had no idea what. But he came around from his side of the desk, and he says to me, "Can I use your camera?" Now, he hadn't touched it that night. So I handed it to him, and then we know each other real well. So I stood with my head literally touching his, because he holds the camera out in front of him, 2 or 3 feet, and I wanted to see the LED screen, you see. So the two of us are looking, and there's nothing but air between us and that door. Nothing. He takes one picture, and suddenly this face, takes up the whole LED screen. I jumped like I had been shot out of a gun. I was like, oh my God. I mean, there's this guy there. Whether my eyes can see beyond the LED screen, I can see there's nothing but air. But on the LED screen, here's this guy. And Robbert then said to me that he thought this was probably someone who had died, who needed help, who didn't know he was dead or was lost, or somehow he needed help, and that he was going to try to send in light balls, because some of the light balls are, he says, consciousnesses, angelic consciousnesses that can help people who have died and need help going wherever it is they got to go. So he then focused on trying to help this guy and took many, many other photos. And over and over and over again, this guy's face appeared repeatedly in different poses, but clear as a bell, in a sort of sepia tone. All of the photos that in that particular realm, in that session, were this sepia tone. And after a while, the man stopped appearing, and then a figure that we can't identify, a very strange-looking figure, appeared multiple times, and then finally the light balls came, and the whole incident was over.
Geez, and that's the video is only about 10 minutes long, so when...
Now, the video part is just about what Dan Drayson documented. What I'm telling you about is an incident in 2006 that I witnessed personally.
Oh, so 7 years before. How long have you known Robbert in total?
1997 was when we first met. And the reason we got to know each other was because a huge light ball had approached the balcony off his bedroom one night in 97, I guess, or 96, I can't remember now. And it had a huge glowing ball of light had been there, scared Robbert and his sister quite a bit. They went running down to get the parents. They came back up, and the light ball was gone, but there was this pile of white powder sitting on the balcony floor, and his parents, in particular his father, who was a bank manager and not interested in crazy things, wanted that white powder analyzed, and we have scientists available to do that sort of thing. And that's how we met. They'd contacted us to ask if we could identify the powder, which we then did. And when I was doing a lecture tour the following year in Europe, my first stop was in Amsterdam.
Yes.
And they came to thank me, and I got to meet Robbert, and the whole the three-ring circus then began.
Let's hold on a second. I got something he's waiting. I'm still trying to get a hold of Robbert here. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, now that's Johnny Webb trying to give me the number. No, sorry, Johnny, that's wrong. That I've tried that. Trust me, you're missing one thing. Okay, no, the other. All I'm getting is chatter about trying to find ways to get Robbert on, but that's okay. Nonetheless, we are more than halfway through the show, so I'm going to continue to talk about you. Let's go. Since we build this show with both of you, I'm going to ask you what was the first time that you've had any sort of experience, because you talked about 2006, 2013, and some other things, especially the time of him waking up in the snow, which to me, like I said, is the first time.
It wasn't in the snow. That was in a cornfield.
In a cornfield, but then also having the crop circle or the circle in snow. To me, that's the first time I've ever heard of anything.
That was in 2009. Actually, I'm looking at the report now. If people go to the BLT Research team, and it's just bltresearch.com/Robbert, and Robbert is spelled ROBBERT. There are two B's, and then Robbert.php. There's an introduction to his case in which I give us some of the background, and then underneath that introduction, there are dozens of reports about all these crazy things, and there's a picture next to each report. And if you scroll down, you're going to see a picture of a snowfield with a bunch of circles in it, and the date is December 2009. And you click on that, and it tells you the whole story. Right above that is the one about the deceased people. It's called Apparition Photos. That was in November 2010 it was posted. And each one, there's a picture of whatever it is we're talking about inside the report right next to it. Now, as far as these deceased people occurring, the most incredible one was when my own brother appeared. And Robbert had never met my brother, didn't even know his name. Because my brother had lived out in Palau, which is in the Pacific Ocean, for years, and he hadn't come up, and he died very unexpectedly in 2007, and I already had my tickets to go to Europe, so I went, and Robbert had told me in advance that he thought my brother was going to appear on the camera, and I wasn't up for it. I was too new, too fresh.
Here, I'm trying to call him. Let's see if this is actually, let's see if we get him. I know we're doing a live call on the show. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Nancy, but I'm trying. Robbert, is that you?
Yes, I am here.
We've been trying to get a hold of you for 45 minutes. Sorry to interrupt you, Nancy. I want you to finish what you were saying, but then I want you to introduce Robbert.
Well, hi, Robbert. We have been trying to get you. You're listening now to Robbert Bendenbroek.
Yes, to everybody.
Yes,
42 countries and counting. We've got a lot of feedback from the last time both of you were on individually, which is why I was really looking forward to, and so many people have been looking forward to tonight's show, which is really fantastic. Now, Nancy...
Maybe you can get Robbert, in the little bit of time that's left, to tell about the kind of UFOs, the differences. I mean, what the UFO thing involved in the circle phenomenon is all about, based on his own experience.
Yes. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for your introduction. Yes, I have lots of experience through the years with what we call UFOs, and you have so many different forms of what we call UFOs. My experience is that you have some people call it Merkaba, some light bodies that formed a sort of shield around
what do you mean shields? If they're light bodies, they're purely just made of light, so I would think that anything can pass through them and they don't really have to worry about something physical, right?
Yes, no,
they
have no
talk.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got a lot of time left.
Yes, it's not that when you are a light being, you cannot be. Nobody can hurt you. That's true. But when they must travel through time and space, you see sometimes that they get a sort of stronger aura around them, that they can go in the 3D world that we have, and then you see sometimes a light ball of a UFO shape. But you have UFOs, they're coming from out another dimension. But you have also UFOs, they're coming really from another solar system, from another planet. And what I will say to a lot of people, all the creatures that exist in the universe are created by the God source, are creating from creations from the source. They are all made from the same light, but they are different, and there is also good and bad. But some creatures, they can travel in time and space, and they can come. They can be here in 1 second. And my experience is that the creatures that show up by me, they only are coming in love and peace, and they are very adult, very high civilized. Some of them, they're coming really from another planet, and some of them, they're living in the worlds that we called the afterlife, after the death. They're living between dimensions, some in a parallel universe, and some are really coming from other planets, and they have gods in the evolution that they was having when they're living on real material planets. When they are so growing up and spiritual, and they know the God consciousness, then they get sometimes the right from the source to travel in time and space. And the reason is that they not have chauvinistic ideas. They don't discriminate more. They don't fight more. They only make study from us, and they will bring us on a planetary level on a higher psychologic collective consciousness.
They're here to try and help raise our consciousness into a more spiritual realm. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Robert, it's
yes.
John in London. You know, there's this instance that's online that talks about when you were teleported, in a sense, from Holland into Spain, into Alan or Stan's home, and they were able to witness that and take a photograph of you appearing there. Is that your consciousness doing that, or is that the alien consciousness that you've visualized doing that on your behalf? How does that work for you, Robert?
I think that it is my higher self, and I think that it is the God consciousness, the source that is above all the solar systems and all the star constellations. It is both. It is both parts. With my normal Robbert consciousness, I don't realize what was happening. I was coming out my bed. I was first in my sleep dreaming that I was traveling in the train to Stan and to Alan. To Spain. Then I was wake up and I was thinking it's just a dream, and then I was walk in my room. I was stepped out my bed and falling on the ground. I was thinking that I was hit something. I was falling on the ground, and I was falling in the house from Stan and Alan, and I was see that they was watching me, and that Stan took some photo of me, and I was feel a loss of peace. I feel myself very fresh, like where I was in nature or in some other dimension. And then, I was jump back in the situation in my home, and then I was coming back. And it's a sort of crisis telepathy, or sort of very quick interdimensional reaction that that people can experience. And lots of people claim that they see me, but sometimes I remember it, and sometimes I don't remember it. Sometimes there are cases, very proofful cases. You can see that also on my website, and on the website, on the Facebook from Nancy, and on the website from Nancy. She have made.
Robert would tell me years ago that some people, some of his clients, would tell him that they had seen him in their homes, and Robert didn't believe it. He didn't take it in the beginning. He thought, no, that's silly, But it wasn't until there were so many of these people, some of whom were his clients, telling him this, that he began to realize that it was actually happening. And this time that it just happened, this spring, with Stan, this time, of course, we have a photograph.
Speaking of Stan, we have Stan on with us.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to introduce Stan. Johnny Webb, take it from here, actually.
Well, yeah, I've got a question actually that's come in for Nancy. It comes from Richard in Kilburn in London. And he'd like to know what Nancy's thoughts were of the Dutch media witch hunt of Robert, Alan and Stan, and how you came to remain loyal to both Robert and his work.
You're asking me
Well, the
this?
reason I'm loyal is because I know it's real. It's very simple. When you've seen it yourself, as many times as I have, I know both Robert and Stan very well. I know Robert better, but I've had enough personal experiences. I've had so many, I'd have to be a huge liar to tell people it isn't real. It's real. Period. It's real. Now, explaining what it means and understanding, Robert knows more than any of us, and maybe Stan also, than I do as to what exactly it means. But I think, like they think, that what we're looking at here are events which help all of us think about this larger reality, be aware that there's more to life than money and fast cars and whatever. There's a whole spiritual realm.
Okay, and Stan, welcome to the show. I'll come back to you in
Yes,
just a
thank
second.
you.
But I just
Yes.
have one quick more question that's come through, and it was Peter in Peckham in London as well, and he asked, what was the kind of powder that was coming down? Was it manna from heaven? Have you had it sort of researched
It's
yet?
hydromagnesite, 99.99% pure hydromagnesite, and it is a laboratory grade. You cannot buy it. I couldn't even buy it. When I had to get some control samples, I had to get a scientist who was registered at a lab to buy it for us. There is no way on the face of the earth that Robbert could have bought it himself. These reports, again, go to the BLT website. It's all right there.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. And Stan, again, welcome to the show. And
Yes, thank you.
If you could you tell us how you first came about meeting Robbert?
Now, it was a very long time ago. I met him through the internet, and the first time I met him, I felt that he was recognized me in a way. So I felt very comfortable with his energy, but he really changed my life. I have no words for it. His appearance and his person has a very big consciousness, and it really changed my life.
And mine, too.
And
Yes.
and
And lots
even
of other
mine
people.
as a host. I mean, this last time we had you guys on, it was separate. On Robert's night with that person who was writing in chat that about saying she saw an image of Robbert 17 minutes before, and then Robbert seemed to start getting a message, and he said, ask her if her name is Antoni, and I see a shoemaker, and I think it was kidney stones, and then all of a sudden this caller or chatter writes back, I have to take a break, I'm so emotional right now. Then comes back and says his name was not Antoni, it was Anton. Yes, he was a shoemaker, and yes, he died from the kidney. And that blew everybody's mind away. Mind away. Now, we got under 12 minutes to finish the show, so I want to give it to you, Robbert. First of all, what were the things that you and Nancy were planning on talking to this global audience before this show started?
We was
The
trying
nature
to,
of the creatures. The nature of the creatures.
yeah, the nature of the
Yeah,
creatures.
because everybody
yes,
asked
that's
that. Are they demonic Nephilim, as Elia Marzulli would say on the show, or are they, for instance, Preston Dennett, one of our regulars, because he's on his 21st book, by the way. Everybody will get to see it
Now,
soon.
Robert's situation is not like that at all, is it, Robbert?
No. That's absolutely not my experience. I will not judge people, or I'm not. Everybody has his own truth, and I respect that, and I have respect for everybody. But it is my experience is only that the creatures that they coming around me, they are only coming from out the God consciousness, and they will help us planetary that we get more consciousness. And my experience is that it is so much love. It's the same when you meet a very sweet puppy dog, or you meet a very little pussycat. You feel that it is so sweet, and they have learned to not misuse the mind, that they are very intelligent. They are more intelligent than us sometimes. Some creatures have a bigger brain, they have a longer evolution, but they have learned to not misuse it, to be kind, to be sweet, to help the universe, and they must get the right to come to create a big universal family, and we are also in the future part of them, and then we can communicate also with other creatures. But you have so many different races.
That's right.
Yes, you have
Over
many,
250 is what the estimates are now. Would you agree with that number?
I don't think
what
you
are
put
you
the number on it.
No, I've not put a number on it. I have learned. My respect for the God source is so big that I know that the God consciousness is everywhere, but not in the logica. And I not make numbers from it, and not give it too much name. And then that learned me to stay open for all the possibilities, and I give the God source then the space to move on. You know, it's the same with religion.
Robert, perfect.
Yeah, they sometimes thank you. Sometimes they say, you know, it's also with the religions on the earth. Some people are very stubborn. They say this is the true. This is the true. I don't know, or there is a number
how many?
or how many creatures. I think maybe there are so many creatures and so many universes that we don't know it. Maybe it will go on forever. And I know that every creature that has a soul, and every creature that exists have a soul, you know, animals, people, what we call creatures, that will stay forever. The body will go kaput, but you will stay forever. And when we realize there is too much, what I feel in this moment is there is too much fantasy about extraterrestrials, and that makes that some people, also in the New Age culture, are too stubborn from this is the truth, and that makes that when some creatures coming, that we're starting to discriminate them. And they're thinking, I read this book and I read this, and maybe, you know, they will eat people, they will do this. And, you know, it's the same with the history that we was having on this planet when black people was not knowing that white people was exist, and there was two white people for the first time. There was, oh my
They thought there was something
and the white
else.
people was thinking, yes, you know, and the white people was thinking, oh, you know, the black people there, oh, you know, and the discrimination was starting, and it's the same with extraterrestrials. When we stop discrimination, then we will be open, have trust, totally trust in the source, in what we call God or the Almighty, then they will come, and it's in peace. When you make first, all the time, I will say that to everybody, and please, 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 people, do it. Please, make first, when you will have contact with extraterrestrials, first make contact with the source, what you call God, the source.
Higher
make
self.
first contact with it. Yes, your higher self, exactly, and then with the creatures, and then you have protection every time.
Now, here's a question I've been sitting on for quite some time. It was actually asked right when the show started, when we had you, and then we lost you. This is Jennifer S. in Phoenix, Arizona. Have you ever seen the short gray extraterrestrials, which are common in alien abduction, in your life?
Yes, I have seen them. I know that this type of creatures was part of a program on this earth to help to go to the earth, to took some cells from some people, some sperms and some eggs, to create another hybrid race on them planet, on them parallel worlds. And they was having a conception problem, and then they was coming in this world to help the planet to survive, to create new possibilities. And I will not say that the experience from the people was traumatic for some people, but I will well say that the people that was meet these creatures and was going in the spaceship and get the experience.
Or
on
some
the
people say that they're actually
let him finish.
time
Let him
machine.
finish. Let him finish. Go
Yes,
ahead, Robert.
yes, or the UFO, or the spaceship, or, you know, the satellite, how you call it. When the people was coming in it, some experiments they was experiencing very traumatic. But I will say that before the people was born, they have decided to work with these creatures and to help them for the planet where they live. And I will not say with this statement that I now make that they must not do dramatic about it. I have respect for everybody that was experienced it as very traumatic, but the soul have decided to work with them. And now, on this moment, the conception problem is over on the planet. It's much better now, and now you hear also not so many abductions more than in the 70s and the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, and that's the reasons. But the problem is that the greys or that type of creature, they don't feel in the way that we feel, and they are very intelligent, but they don't exactly how to deal with anxiety from people and emotions, and they have learned now more, make study from it, and now they have more respect for people. But I understand that some people was experiencing it as traumatic.
Yes.
I have seen them a couple of times. I have seen them also in my sleep room. There was a little cabinet, and I was see that the creature was standing there.
Mm-hmm.
But I have see them also different times. And my sister was sleeping in her bed with her boyfriend, and the creatures were standing around the bed.
The
and
beings,
the boyfriend
really?
Was, oh, the
Yes,
beings.
and she
yes.
lost
and the,
that boyfriend pretty quickly.
yes. He was totally shocked about it, that they really was standing there, and they was sometimes have contact with my sister, and sometimes they was coming to me. But my experience is they are good guys, they are good guys, but
So there's
like
different
humans,
other experiences. Well, so, like I
Yes,
said,
exactly.
what I was trying to mention earlier, the two things. When Preston Dennett has written a book, UFO Healings, that I think it's about over 200 cases of documented healings. For instance, a woman was shipwrecked in a small fishing boat off the coast of California. The ship capsized. Next thing she knows, she remembers the light coming, and she was on shore. But the other thing I was trying to say when you were talking about ships is a lot of people say that they are also not just space vehicles, they are time machines, because if you can use gravity for time travel, for speed, you can bend time-space continuum and create
exactly.
time machine.
Yes.
We have
yes,
I know we're
yes.
getting really close to the end, but we have caller 562. 562, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Bob. I was calling in a question on the grave.
Lieutenant Bob Wiegand, former Navy SEAL. I've done a lot with Billy Meyer, and I was writing a lot of comments with Robbert. So I wanted him to ask, say what he wanted to say to Robbert. Go ahead, since we have a few minutes left.
Thanks. Okay, just a quick question on the graves. I was reading in the Meyer material that you said that they were androids, that they weren't actually they were created. The biological androids, like computers, they didn't have a spirit, but they had a capacity, the mental capacity.
Factories, off the factories.
Yeah, they were made for space travel to do exploring. They have their own mind, communicate. They have their own desires to kind of explore things and do things. They have their freedom, their free agency.
Okay, so the question is, are there some that are androids and do not have souls, right?
Yeah, that's the question. Do you know, or do you get a sense of that, Robert?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. Thank you. I think it's scientific. It's a very difficult thing to think about it. I think self that when some creature have his own feelings, can make his own decisions, that there must be a soul, there must be some personality. It's when you create a computer, you must plan things in, and that make them a sort of brain, but it's not exactly how you say that, a personality. Also, the robots and the fake consciousness, it's different than a real creature. But I think that I will not say too much about it, and I have not really answer about it. But the only thing that I know is something different. Is that some planets are so far that they have learned to go out the body, just to have an out-of-body experience, and they have made a sort of biologic dolls with no soul in it, and then the soul is jumping in it, and it's a much more stronger body to do space travel, and they go in the doll, in the computer, and they travel, and they come on some other planets. Some meetings with some creatures that people was having look like a sort of later dolls that they will see, or a sort of robot things. And that is possible. They have learned to put the soul to come out the body that they have self, the biologic body, how they was born. And they have made a sort of dolls, and some souls jump in it, and it's much more stronger. It can have lots of heaviness from traveling, and then they use it. I know that it is possible, but I don't know if it is possible that you have a real living creature with no soul. It's interesting, you know. It's also when you come on the part from cloning people, you know, there is a soul in it, but they have sometimes exactly the same character. Then also,
I think that tells him what they need, Robert.
Yes. Now,
yeah.
I have to say,
okay.
We've already gone over, so we do have to wrap this up. Not to mention, unfortunately, this isn't the way we planned the show to be connected to Robert, but I'm glad we were able to get him on. So, before we go, I have to start with final statements and where people can find you. And let me say this real quick. Both Nancy Talbot's and Robbert van den Broek's, forgive me, Nancy will correct me in a second of how to spell that right. Our videos from the last interviews are up. They've already played on all the other stations, and they are on YouTube under Dr. J Radio Live, which is the same name as the show and every social media account, plus our website. So check those out if you want to hear the last show and this show after it makes its time through the networks. And then again, when I bring them both back, and this time, hopefully, there's no interference trying to get Robert. We'll start with Nancy.
Yes. BLTresearch.com. When you want to read about the science, if you want to hear or read the stories about Robert, all the details, it's bltresearch.com/Robert with 2 B's, .php. Tons of info there.
Now, let's go to Robert. Aside from the video we have from you last time, is there a website you'd like to throw in, as well as what would your final statement be to everybody listening internationally here in America, and that will be hearing this show after tonight and forever?
Yes, thank you. My website is robertvandenbroek.com with 2 B's.
Two
Robert,
B's, that's right.
And yes. Vandenbroek and .com, and also I'm also on Facebook, and I have 2 Facebooks, and you can watch also the newest news on Facebook, and of course on Nancy Talbott's website. You can see a lot of
I've got
information.
Facebook now too, back again, so we're both on Facebook.
Good.
Yes.
So, aside from that, I want to thank you both. I also want to thank my team. We got Johnny, like I said, all the way here from the UK, sharing with me, plus everybody else who's helped. And I just want to remind you all that disclosure is in your hands. What you do is you need to take this information that you're not going to hear from anybody else, or on CNN, Fox, or anything like that, BBC, and use your skills and spread it, because the only way disclosure is going to come about is by listening to people such as Nancy and Robert. telling you information that you will not find in mainstream. With that being said, I gotta say, this is Dr. J, and as always, a very exhilarating show, and we are signing off. All right, there we go. I know we went a little over time. Robbert, yeah, we had a long time getting you